Over 50, 5 healthy exercises you should ignore, and 5 that truly strengthen your legs. Exercise number 1, deep squat. The deep squat has been treated for decades as the king of leg exercises. In gyms and workout videos, it appears as a synonym for strength and functionality, and not without reason. When performed correctly, it recruits the quadriceps, gluteus maximus, and hamstrings together, simulating everyday movements such as sitting down and standing up from a low chair. The problem is that this full range of motion so often praised requires a level of hip and ankle mobility and a degree of knee integrity that after 50 is no longer guaranteed in most people. With aging, it is natural to experience progressive loss of cartilage, reduced joint lubrication, and weakening of the connective tissues that support the knee. This means that by repeatedly forcing a deep bend, you may be overloading a structure that no longer responds as it once did. I have observed that practitioners over 50 who insist on the deep squat without proper preparation report knee discomfort, popping sounds, and in some cases, recurring inflammation. What many people do not know is that pain does not always appear immediately. It can be cumulative, surfacing months after repeated microinjuries. This does not mean that squatting is forever off limits, but rather that extreme depth, without the necessary motor control, becomes an unnecessary risk when there are alternatives just as effective and far safer. Replacing this movement pattern with partial or supported versions, as you will see later on, preserves the benefits without exposing the joints to a level of stress they no longer tolerate as well. People with a history of knee osteoarthritis, meniscus injury, or chronic lower back pain often experience significant worsening when attempting to maintain this deep squat pattern without specialized supervision. Exercise number 2, lunges. Lunges are widely recommended because they work each leg unilaterally, which helps correct imbalances between the sides of the body. In theory, it is an excellent exercise for functional strength, as it mimics the act of walking and climbing stairs. However, there is a detail rarely discussed in general recommendations. When you step forward and lower your hips, the front knee receives a significant load of impact and shearing force, especially when the movement is performed without speed control. After 50, balance also tends to become less precise, which increases the chance of oscillation during the descent. And do you know why this happens? Because with age, there is a natural reduction in proprioceptive sensitivity, meaning the body's ability to perceive its position in space gradually decreases. This means that a lunge performed on an unstable surface or with too long a stride can result in a loss of balance precisely at the moment when the knee is most vulnerable, bent, and bearing weight. Add to this the fact that many people try to compensate for lack of strength with longer strides, which further increases pressure on the joint. The result is often pain at the front of the knee, a feeling of instability, and, in more serious cases, falls. This does not mean the lunge movement is useless, but rather that its traditional version, with a long stride and deep descent, requires a level of joint control that may not be available for everyone after this age. People with knee instability, patellar tendonitis, or recent history of falls should avoid this version before first developing a foundation of balance and strength through more controlled exercises. Exercise number 3, jumping jacks. Jumping jacks are practically synonymous with warm-ups. They appear in physical education classes, functional training sessions, and cardio routines precisely because they quickly activate the cardiovascular system and work the legs, shoulders, and core at the same time. The problem lies in what this exercise demands from the bone and joint structure. Each jump generates an impact that repeats constantly and at high frequency, and that impact is absorbed primarily by the knees, ankles, and hips. Can you imagine the effect of that repeated hundreds of times in a single training session? With age, bone density tends to decrease, especially in women in the post-menopausal phase, and joint cartilage loses part of its shock-absorbing capacity. This creates a scenario in which jumping jacks, which seem like a simple and harmless warm-up, actually impose repetitive stress that can accelerate joint wear and increase the risk of stress fractures in people with undiagnosed osteopenia or osteoporosis. I have observed frequent reports of ankle pain and pain at the front of the knee in practitioners who keep this exercise as a fixed part of their warm-up without any adaptation. What many people do not know is that there are ways to raise heart rate without this pattern of repeated impact, preserving the cardiovascular system without compromising the joints. People with diagnosed osteoporosis, a history of stress fractures, or chronic joint pain in the ankle and knee should completely avoid this type of repetitive impact exercise. Exercise number 4, walking. It may seem strange to see walking on this list, since it is widely recommended by doctors and associated with numerous cardiovascular benefits. And that is true. Walking is indeed excellent for the heart, for circulation, and for overall well-being. The problem is not with walking itself, but with treating it as though it were sufficient to strengthen the legs after 50. A common mistake is to believe that because it involves the legs in motion, walking already guarantees meaningful maintenance of muscular strength. The beauty of this exercise lies in its ability to improve endurance and cardiovascular health, but it does not provide enough progressive overload to stimulate hypertrophy or maintain muscular strength over the years. This is because without meaningful external resistance, the muscles of the legs do not receive the stimulus needed to prevent sarcopenia, which is the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength related to aging. Studies have shown that after 50, the loss of muscle mass can accelerate significantly if strength training is not combined with aerobic activities. This means a person can walk every day, feel well cardiovascularly, and still silently lose strength in their legs, only noticing when they are already having difficulty climbing stairs or getting up from a low chair. Walking remains an excellent complementary practice, but it should never be the only pillar of muscular strengthening for the legs after this stage of life. Exercise number 5, standing hip abduction. Standing hip abduction, typically performed with a resistance band or ankle weight, is frequently recommended as a safe exercise to strengthen the gluteus medius, an important stabilizer of the hip. And indeed, this muscle is essential for preventing the well-known lateral hip drop during walking, a common problem as age advances. What many people do not know is that, although the intention behind the exercise is correct, the standing version tends to fail precisely with the audience that needs it most. To maintain balance on one leg while the other moves laterally, a significant level of stability is required that a large portion of people over 50 has not yet developed. This creates a situation where, in the attempt to strengthen the hip, the person compensates with trunk tilting, unnecessary rotations of the supporting hip, and in many cases loses balance entirely. Instead of isolating the gluteus medius as intended, the body recruits other muscles in a compensatory manner, reducing the effectiveness of the movement and increasing the risk of falling during the very execution of what is considered a safe exercise. People with a recent history of falls, vertigo, labyrinthitis, or significant postural instability should avoid this standing version without support and seek variations with support or performed in a lying position. Now that you know which exercises deserve more careful consideration, let us move on to the options that truly strengthen your legs safely. Exercise number 1, wall squat. The wall squat is one of the most intelligent ways to preserve the benefits of the traditional squat without exposing the knee to excessive stress. What makes this exercise particularly valuable is the way it provides full support to the spine throughout the entire movement, virtually eliminating the risk of imbalance. To perform it correctly, press your back against a wall, place your feet hip-width apart, and slide your body down until your knees form a comfortable angle, never letting them go past your toes. Hold this isometric position for a set period, sustaining the contraction of the quadriceps and glutes without any need for dynamic balance. The key is to control your breathing during the hold, avoiding holding your breath, which can raise blood pressure unnecessarily. For beginners, I recommend starting with 15 seconds of holding, progressing gradually to 30 seconds as strength increases. You will know you are doing it correctly when you feel the work concentrated in the front of the thigh and in the glute, without any discomfort in the knee. A common mistake is to descend too far, forming a very acute angle at the knee, which recreates part of the stress we are trying to avoid. Keep the angle at around 90 degrees or slightly more open. This exercise is especially recommended for people with a history of mild patellar pain, since the wall eliminates the need for fine motor control during the descent and ascent. Exercise number 2, glute bridge. The glute bridge is one of the most underestimated exercises when it comes to safe strengthening of the legs and hips after 50. What many people do not know is that the gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body, and most people have no idea of that. Neglecting this muscle means giving up one of the greatest allies in pelvic stabilization and in the prevention of lower back pain, which is so common at this stage of life. To perform the glute bridge, lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor at hip-width apart. Lift your hips toward the ceiling, intensely contracting the glute at the top of the movement and lower in a controlled manner. The eccentric phase, meaning the moment of descent, is frequently overlooked, but it represents an important part of the muscular stimulus, so lower yourself counting to 3 before lightly touching the floor again. Remember that the initial lying position completely eliminates the risk of falling, making this exercise extremely safe even for those who have little confidence in their own balance. To progress, Increase the hold time at the top, moving from 2 seconds to 5 seconds, or gradually increase the number of repetitions. This exercise also promotes blood circulation in the legs, since the elevated hip position facilitates venous return. It is recommended even for people with standing balance limitations, making it an excellent entry point for those who are returning to physical activity after a period of inactivity. Exercise number 3, stationary marching with knee raises. Stationary marching is an intelligent adaptation for those who need cardiovascular stimulus without the repetitive impact of exercises like jumping jacks. By alternately raising the knees at a controlled pace, without any jumping, you keep your heart rate elevated while strengthening the hip flexors and quadriceps and improving coordination between the legs. To perform it correctly, keep your torso upright, raise one knee to approximately hip height, and alternate with the other leg at a pace you can sustain with control without losing balance. What makes this exercise particularly valuable is the possibility of performing it while holding onto a chair or wall, which further reduces the risk for those who feel insecure about their balance. Can you imagine being able to train your heart and your legs at the same time without the impact that causes so much concern after 50? That is exactly what this exercise offers. For beginners, I recommend starting with 30 seconds of execution, resting, and repeating for 3 to 4 sets, then progressing to 60 continuous seconds. A common mistake is to raise the knees too quickly in an attempt to intensify the exercise, which compromises balance. Always prioritize control over speed. This exercise is an excellent alternative for people with osteoporosis or a history of stress fractures, as it offers meaningful cardiovascular stimulus without the impact characteristic of jumping exercises. Exercise number 4, Bulgarian split squat. The Bulgarian split squat is an excellent way to work each leg unilaterally with safety. Unlike traditional lunges, it allows full control of the descent speed. To perform it, position the top of one foot resting on a low bench behind your body, keeping most of your weight on the front leg, and lower slowly until you feel the work in the thigh and glute. Without needing to descend deeply, rest one hand on a chair or wall beside you to ensure full stability throughout the entire movement. The beauty of this exercise lies in its ability to isolate each leg individually, correcting strength imbalances between the sides of the body, something extremely common as we age. For beginners, I recommend starting with a small range of motion, lowering only a few inches, and progressing gradually by increasing the range as confidence and strength grow. A common mistake is to try to lower too far before having the necessary control, which recreates the instability risk we are trying to avoid with the traditional version. People with uncontrolled blood pressure should pay attention to the time spent holding the low position, avoiding holding their breath during the movement. Exercise number 5, heel raises. Heel raises, also known as calf raises, are a simple but extremely underestimated exercise when it comes to leg health after 50. The calf is often called the body's second heart, and that is no exaggeration. It plays a fundamental role in pumping blood back to the heart, working against the force of gravity, especially in people who spend long periods sitting or who have compromised circulation. To perform them correctly, stand upright while holding onto a chair or wall for balance, and raise your heels as high as possible, briefly holding at the top before lowering in a controlled manner. Whenever possible, perform the exercise on a small step, allowing the heel to drop below the level of the toes, which increases the range of motion and muscular activation. The key is to vary the position of your feet between parallel, turned out, and turned in across the sets, since this allows you to target different portions of the calf muscle. Because this is a muscle with a predominance of slow-twitch fibers, it responds better to longer sets, so work between 15 and 20 repetitions per set. This exercise also plays a direct role in overall body balance, and strengthening the calf can significantly help reduce the risk of falls, one of the greatest fears associated with aging. To progress, increase the number of repetitions before adding any extra weight, and only after that consider adding light load in your hands. Have you noticed how small, intelligent substitutions can completely transform the safety and efficiency of your training? Swapping the deep squat for the wall squat, or traditional lunges for the supported Bulgarian split squat, does not mean training with less intensity. It means training with intelligence, respecting your body's current condition without abandoning the goal of keeping strong and functional legs for many years to come. Designing an effective leg routine after 50 without considering these adaptations is like trying to bail out a sinking boat with a cup of water. You put in a great deal of effort, but the result never matches the energy invested. Small, well-made choices, sustained consistently over time, are what truly make the difference in your physical independence in the future. If you enjoyed this and want to discover the exercises that Japanese people practice in bed every night to never lose leg strength, we have left a video appearing right now on the screen showing each one of them in detail. Make sure to check it out and also look into our biological shielding protocol. Thank you for watching all the way through, and may God bless you, my friend.